Thank you so much, Francesca. We've got Hannah Marshall next. Morning, Hannah.
Yeah, I got some very loud building work going on next door, so hopefully that will remain silent for the next 3 minutes. I'm Hannah Marshall. I'm currently writing up my PhD on child criminal exploitation at the Institute of Criminology at the University of Cambridge, and I thought I'd use this time to tell a little bit of story. So the first time we met, Dylan, who's aged 15, arrived surrounded by an enormous black puffer coat. He removed this to reveal a t-shirt and a scuffed stab-proof vest, the latter Riley explained as to keep warm. At the time that he took part in my PhD research, Dylan was completing a referral order with the US in relation to possession with intent to supply Class A drugs and was being supported by a specialist worker dealing with child criminal exploitation. Dylan is in the minority among the young people that took part in my research in that he asserted his vulnerability, describing himself as a victim of criminal exploitation. But his relationships to the concepts of vulnerability and victimhood were dynamic and conflicted. Dylan's assertion that he was a victim of exploitation had prevented him from receiving a prison sentence. However, this close contact with an assertion of vulnerability stood in tension with ideas that he had about his masculinity, specifically his involvement in drug dealing as a way of supporting his mum with rent and food, and with his class identity, his sense that he, unlike those he described as high-class kids, was in control and knew how to handle himself on the drugs market, had his head screwed on. Professionals' perceptions of Dylan as vulnerable were similarly complex, as over time Dylan struggled to disentangle himself from involvement in county lines drug distribution. Additional offences corroded professionals' perceptions of him as a vulnerable victim. These were supplanted with perceptions of a drug dealer who had gamed the system, and it seemed that vulnerability and victimhood had expiry dates. So in my research, I'm interested in two issues relating to vulnerability. Thematically, I'm interested in understanding the processes by which young people involved in county lines come to claim or reject the victim of exploitation label, as well as the processes by which their status as vulnerable victims emerges, or more often fails to emerge, within the youth justice system. And then methodologically, as someone working with a group who would usually be flagged as vulnerable, I'm interested in understandings of vulnerability as a universal and dynamic quality, and in compassionate and collaborative research that asks what individual research participants need in a given research context, as opposed to making assumptions about what they are or are not. Thank you.